We're going to talk about other endocrine glands. The title of my talk is Gonads, Pineal, Thymus, and Other Fabulous Hormone Producers. So today we're going to do basically everything but the kitchen sink, all the leftover stuff that you haven't talked about so far. Take my glasses off, and we will get started. Get my pen. Here we go. All right, there we go. All right, gonads, pineal, thymus, and other fabulous hormone producers. So what are we going to talk about? Let's start talking about the gonads. We should know what those are by now. I know you haven't had reproductive yet, but as part of endocrine, you should know a little bit about what gonads are. They are basically the male and female sex organs, and they produce steroid sex hormones. And the two organs we're talking about are the ovaries. Hopefully you know that's the female, and the testes in the male. Now, let's see if my pen's working. Nope, my pen's still not working. Hang on. There we go. Our ovaries. So the ovaries produce estrogens and progesterones. Estrogens and progesterones. And they have several different functions. We can divide this basically into two groups. These are these are the ones that estrogen plays a role in. Estrogen plays a role in the maturation of reproductive organs and in secondary sexual characteristics. Okay? Estrogen and progesterone play a role in breast development and the cyclic changes in the uterine mucosa, so your menstrual cycle. They play a role in that. So you have estrogen with your reproductive organs, maturing of your reproductive organs, and your secondary sexual characteristics, and then estrogen and progesterone work together in breast development and cyclic changes in the uterine mucosa. Now, a temporary female organ, it's temporary, is the placenta. When would you have the placenta? Why would it be temporary? When you are pregnant. You should know that. All right. So it releases hormones that influence the course of the pregnancy and help sustain the fetus. Now, you have estrogens, progesterones, and HCG, which is known as human chorionic gonadotropin, released by the placenta. The estrogens and the progesterone, they work together to get the mammary glands ready. All right, so your mammary glands, they're getting ready for lactation. So toward the end of pregnancy, the estrogens and progesterones are going to work together to get the breasts ready to make milk so you can feed the baby. HCG, or human chorionic gonadotropin, you may have heard of this. This is what they test for in a pregnancy test. They're looking for HCG levels. So that's what when you do a urine dip test, HCG. Now, HCG helps maintain the corpus luteum. And you'll learn a little bit more about that when you talk about the L-U-T-E-U-M, corpus luteum. You'll learn a little bit more about that when you talk about the menstrual cycle and things like that. But it helps maintain the corpus luteum, and the corpus luteum makes progesterone. Progesterone. All right. And progesterone helps the uterus proliferate. Increases blood vessels, thickens the lining of the uterus, increases blood vessels in the uterus, increases the lining of the uterus. So basically it gets it ready to nourish a baby. So if HCG levels fall, then you typically abort the baby. It's usually a failed pregnancy or a miscarriage when HCG levels fall. Now, the male gonadal organs are the testes, and they produce testosterone. And they are responsible for the maturation of the male reproductive organs, just like estrogen is for the females. They cause the appearance of secondary sex characteristics, sex drive, libido. You need them for normal sperm production, and they maintain the sex organs in a functional state. So testosterone for males, estrogen and progesterone for females. Now, another gland is the pineal gland. Okay, so this is located in the brain. If you go back to 201, maybe you'll remember we talked about the thalamus and the hypothalamus. Well, right here along the third ventricle above the thalamus is this little pineal gland. And if you remember from the models, it was like a little pink hair. That's what it looked like in the models in 201. That's the pineal gland, and it secretes melatonin, not melanin, not the things that not what makes your skin dark, but melatonin, and it helps regulate our daily cycle. It's a nocturnal and diurnal cycle, or our sleep-wake cycle. Our sleep-wake cycle. All right, and melatonin basically goes up and down throughout the day. It's really high at night, makes us drowsy. Tends to be at its lowest level around noontime, when you should be wide awake. So high levels at night make you drowsy. Low levels at noon make you awake, unless maybe your clock is backwards. It does play a role in the female reproductive cycle. It may help control the onset of puberty. It tends to affect mood and emotion. Some people have what they call seasonal affective disorder, and that may have a role with the pineal gland. Not enough light, the daylight is short, and they wind up having what they call SAD, seasonal affective disorder. That can happen. Sometimes it'll play a role in maintaining your body temperature, your appetite, and things like that. Cool thing about the pineal gland, when you go back to this SAD, is actually there is a pathway. This is going to be my eyeball, okay? Here's the retina. There's actually a pathway from the retina, a neural pathway from the retina to the hypothalamus and then to the pineal gland. So actually the amount of light does indirectly affect the pineal gland. So that's how it plays a role in these sleep-wake cycles and seasonal changes and things like that. All right, another endocrine organ, the thymus. The thymus is located right here near in the mediastinum, below the larynx, between the lungs. It's basically a gland with several lobules or small sections located deep to the sternum. And it produces several hormones, or thymopoietins or thymosins, and these are essential for programming T cells. So this has to do with immunity. And basically what the thymus does, these hormones, they help your thymus program your T cells to recognize self. So this allows you to know who you are. Basically your immune system to know who you are so you don't attack your own body. So that's the job of the thymus, is to help program your T cells. Now, the thymus is larger in the child, and it basically decreases in size as you become an adult. So it basically atrophies and basically goes away to hardly anything at all. So you have a large one in childhood, and then it gets smaller in the adult. That's about all you need to know about the thymus. You'll learn more when you talk about immunity later on. Now, those are kind of the major other hormone producers, but then there's another group of other hormone producers, okay? Long list. The heart, gastrointestinal cells, I already mentioned the placenta, so we can take that one off the list. The kidneys, the skin, adipose tissue, you guys should know that's fat, and the skeleton. So these have individual small hormonal roles in each one of these organs. What does the heart produce? It produces something called ANP, and that's usually what you're going to hear, ANP, but it stands for atrial natriuretic peptide. And the thing about this, it tells you what it does. Do you remember what a diuretic is? Makes you urinate? Well, natriuretic means it makes you urinate salt. Okay, so I say salty urine. So it's a hormone produced by the heart that makes you produce salty urine. So if you can remember that, you'll remember what it does. Which way does water go? Water follows what? Sodium. So water follows sodium. If you're increasing the salt in your urine, okay, then you're going to urinate more water. That's going to reduce your blood pressure, reduce your blood volume, and reduce your blood sodium concentration. So it does the opposite of what hormone? Aldosterone. So ANP and aldosterone do the opposite thing. Remember, aldosterone causes you to increase your amount of sodium absorption. That increases your water retention and increases your blood volume and increases your blood pressure. So you would secrete ANP in response to high blood pressure. If your blood pressure is high, you want to get rid of water, you're going to get rid of salt. That way you'll get rid of water and your blood volume will go down and your blood pressure will go down. This goes back to Unit 1 of your cardiovascular unit this semester. The GI cells, the gastrointestinal cells, this is in your gut. Basically, we have 3 different hormones released that help control digestion. We have gastrin, secretin, and cholecystokinin. That's a long one. A lot of people just call it CCK. Cholecystokinin, secretin, and gastrin. Now, gastrin is released in order to stimulate the release of hydrochloric acid into the stomach. Help tear down those foods. Secretin stimulates the liver and the pancreas to secrete bicarbonate. Why would you want to secrete bicarbonate? And where would you want to secrete bicarbonate? Into the duodenum or the duodenum, which is part of the small intestine. So your stomach's full of acid, okay? So now you want that food to move from your stomach into the small intestine. We need to neutralize that acid. So secretin causes the liver and pancreas to secrete bicarbonate that can then be released to the small intestine to neutralize that acid. Cholecystokinin plays a role in that cascade. It basically stimulates the pancreas, the gallbladder, and the hepatopancreatic sphincter. The pancreas makes enzymes to help tear down proteins, things like that, break down the food. The gallbladder makes bile salts, which are used to emulsify fats, help break down that. Emulsify fat, to help break down the fat. And then the cholecystokinin causes the hepatopancreatic sphincter to open, and that allows these enzymes and this bile to then leave the pancreas and the gallbladder and go into the small intestine. So they all work together to help move the appropriate chemicals into your digestive system to help break down that food. You also have something, if I can erase all. Yay. All right. That you can do called serotonin. Gastrointestinal cells release serotonin, which is a paracrine hormone, which means it acts on a nearby cell. And serotonin makes your gut move. Okay? So let's say you've got some kind of a noxious substance in your stomach or in your gut and you're trying to get rid of it. Basically what serotonin does, it causes the gut to move faster, all right, so that you can have basically diarrhea, to move that stuff on out of there, to get that noxious stuff out of your system and move it out. So that's what it does. Helps you eliminate noxious stuff by making your gut more motile. The kidneys. Kidneys secrete basically 2 things: renin, some people say renin, either way, renin or renin, and erythropoietin, we call it EPO. You may have heard that in association with athletics. Renin basically initiates the renin-angiotensin system to maintain blood control. And if you go back to Unit 1, you'll remember that has something to do with aldosterone. Or actually, Unit 2, you probably covered aldosterone when you were talking earlier in Unit 2. Erythropoietin, EPO, basically increases the production of red blood cells by the bone marrow. So where can you think of a situation where you might secrete more erythropoietin? Why would you want to do that? Maybe if you went to high altitude. Let's say you go to the mountains, okay, and you can't breathe. You need more oxygen carrying capacity in your blood. So that basically is a signal to tell your body we need more red blood cells. Your kidneys are going to secrete erythropoietin Your bone marrow is going to make more red blood cells. You're going to have a better carrying capacity of oxygen in your blood. You're going to feel a little bit better. So you'll see that within 2 to 3 days at altitude. So if you leave here and go to Denver, the first couple days you can't breathe. Within a week, you should be acclimated. And what that means is your kidneys have secreted EPO, and your blood cells, your bone marrow has responded by making more red blood cells. You carry more oxygen, and now you don't have that tired feeling anymore. And it can last several weeks. That's why athletes will train at altitude, so that they have more red blood cells due to this cascade of the kidneys making EPO, or erythropoietin. Now last, I think it's last. Oh, no, not quite. All right, is the skin. The skin produces cholecalciferol, which is the precursor to vitamin D. This then, the final stages of vitamin D production actually occur in the kidney. But in order for this first step to occur, that's in the skin, and you have to have UV radiation to start that cascade. So UV radiation, or light from the sun, is going to make you produce the cholecalciferol, which is in the precursor of vitamin D, which that process is finished in the kidney. This also, cholecalciferol, actually stimulates this active transport of calcium across the intestinal membrane, so that it allows you to absorb more calcium. So if you think about milk, milk is always what? Vitamin D fortified. Because vitamin D helps you increase your absorption of calcium. So you want to have calcium and vitamin D in your diet together so that you'll absorb more calcium. Adipose tissue. It releases two things, leptin and resistin. Leptin suppresses appetite, gives you that satiated feeling, and it can also increase your energy expenditure, cause you to burn energy a little bit more efficiently. And then resistin. And it's an antagonist, which means it works in the opposite direction of insulin on the liver cells. So you have leptin to make you feel like you're full, and resistin to be the antagonist of insulin. And what does insulin do? Helps you regulate your blood glucose levels. You should have learned about that when you learned about the pancreas. And now, I think last is your skeleton. The osteoblasts. You remember that from 201? Osteoclast and osteoblasts? If not, go back. All right, so you have osteoblasts, and they basically make something called osteocalcin, which prods pancreatic beta cells to divide and make more insulin. So if you make more insulin, that improves your ability to handle glucose, and then thereby reduce body fat. So your skeleton actually plays a role in keeping your blood sugar regulated as well. Now that's all I have to say. So if you have any questions, just come find me. My name's Nicole Mashburn. I'm on the faculty here, 3rd floor. So good luck, and I will see you next time. Thank you.